Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby. I've got something really different for you today. I am going to be building a brand new computer. Now, if you know my previous rig, I'm using a Z77 motherboard with a 3570K. You can take a look at that at a video up here. I'll provide a click through. Now, when I made that computer, it was completely sufficient for what I wanted to do, i.e. play games to the max. However, I had no idea I was going to get so big on YouTube and Twitch, so now it's time to upgrade to something really powerful so I can maximize my frame rates even when I'm recording content. And so hopefully we can reach 60 FPS even in very modern games and not just World of Tanks. In this video, I'm going to show you a complete install step by step. I'm going to run down all of the different products that I've decided to put in this and whether they're going to be suitable for you. And remember, I have bought these products to be a production rig for videos as well as gaming, and also remember I'm rendering at 1080p, often at 45 and hopefully 60 frames a second while playing the game. So a lot of this hardware will be complete overkill for you unless you are an enthusiast or you're producing video content like me. So let's take a quick look at what components are going into this brand new beast build. And you guys might be wondering, what's in the bag? This is the Corsair 760T. I have never had a case this good. Let's get started. Inside it, we've got the most important part of the computer, and that is the motherboard. Thank you so much to Gigabyte for sending me this. I gave one of these away when I was doing my live streams at Gamescom, and you would have seen it, and congratulations to whoever was the lucky winner. I was so jealous that I decided that I had to go get one myself, and so thank you so much to Gigabyte for sending me this motherboard. This is the new LGA 1151 socket for the new Skylake architecture. It's brand new, it only came out in August as far as I'm aware. And this is the CPU that I'm going to be combining it with. As you can see, it's an i7-6700K. This is one of the most powerful consumer processors that you can buy. As it's an i7, it's going to have hyper-threading cores. I'm currently using a 3570K i5, and so I haven't had the luxury of having hyper-threading, even though I'm currently running a quad core as well, which this is. Now I know there are some builds out there which use hex cores. I believe it's the i7-5820K. I'll correct that later if I'm wrong. That actually do, it's a hex core design. They've got 6 cores. But the problem with that I found that some people were getting not so good chips and they were unable to reach the kind of speeds that I wanted. I really want to overclock this CPU. So about 4.4, 4.5. But whether I'm going to be able to do that or not is another question. And so if you want to overclock a Skylake CPU, and I've invested so much money into this chip, then I wanted to get a really good cooler. If you've seen my last build, you'll know that I had a Corsair H100, and I looked around many reviews talking about these closed circuit water coolers. Now I've got a nice radiator on that H100. It's got 4 120mm fans in a kind of a push-pull format. And I looked at so many reviews saying that you can do the same with an air cooler and not have that worry of either having water in your system. And also this Noctua NH D15 D-Type Premium Cooler, which is the upgrade to the legendary the NH14, as many of you may know, is probably, well, many of the reviews state the best air cooler that you can get. It's massive, so you need to have a big case to be able to fit it in, but it's totally worth it. And this is about, I'd say, you get about, it's not quite half the price, it's probably about 60 to 70% of the price of getting a top market closed water cooler like a Corsair H100. So I thought I'd be getting more bang for my buck there. And the fans on that are legendary as well. The fans on this are very quiet, and that's what I want. I don't want to have a loud machine. So next, what have I chosen for the RAM? Well, I chose some Corsair Vengeance LPX. I decided to get 2133 megahertz RAM. I checked out many reviews, and the difference between this kind of RAM and, for example, the 2600 plus, I know the next step up is 2400, was maybe only just 1 or 2 frames in the latest games if you're a gamer. Now I've chosen to have 32 gigabytes of RAM. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend you to get 32 gigabytes of RAM. In my current setup, I have 16 gigabytes of RAM, and I've hardly ever really needed more than that. But as I do render a lot of videos, this really helps with video editing. For a gamer, really, you don't need more than about 8 gigabytes. I'd say the sweet spot is probably maybe 12 to 16 gigabytes. 32 will really be overkill unless you're going into video production. But this is going to be a big step up in speed for me. The speed goes up to 2133 megahertz. It's DDR4, whereas previously I was using 1600 megahertz DDR3. We're going to see how this performs when I'm not only doubling the amount of RAM that we have in there, but also increasing the speed dramatically, so that's going to be interesting.
So there was a little bit of a development with regards to the graphics card on this computer. I bought a GTX 970 last year in October for, I think it was £250, and that was and still is an absolutely amazing card. Pretty much overkill for everything, right up until 1440p. Also known as 2K. If you want to start to get maybe more than 50 or 60 frames at 2K, then you probably need to look towards getting a 980 or even a 980 Ti. Especially when you consider that I am limited to gaming at 1080p because not many of you guys will have 1440 monitors and therefore you can't watch it on Twitch. And so I thought the GTX 970 that I had was going to be completely awesome for the build. And yes, it is. And this is completely overkill, especially for a game like World of Tanks. Nevertheless, I couldn't believe it when I heard, but Gigabyte said that they wanted to send me a replacement card if I wanted to have it. And lo and behold, I don't know what to say. They sent me a GeForce GTX 980 Ti. This is the G1 Gaming Edition. This is pretty much one of the most powerful, at least gaming graphics cards that you can get. And apparently it goes toe-to-toe with the GTX Titan, which is a horrendously expensive card. Now, I'm not saying that this isn't. There's no way in hell that I would pay, personally, the asking price for this card, which I think is in the region of 500 to 550 Great British pounds. And it is above and beyond overkill for my needs. But nevertheless, I'd like to say a massive thank you to Gigabyte for letting me test out this card in my main rig and my production rig, my streaming rig, everything. Thanks a lot, Gigabyte.
So what kind of power supply have I chosen for this monster graphics card, and also to be able to overclock an i7, use probably 2 solid states and 2 regular hard drives in the system? I've chosen a 650 watt RM Corsair. Now I've got a 520 watt power supply that I've been using, I think, for about 7 years, and it hasn't faltered once. And so I'm hoping the current quality, as good as Corsair was 7 years ago, putting my faith in them, hopefully they won't let me down. Lots of people get ridiculously powerful power supplies, and I don't understand why, really, unless you're going to SLI, you're going to put in 2 graphics cards into a computer, or if you've got a huge amount of hard drives, then there's really no need to have that gigantic power supply. I really like this one because it's got gold efficiency, which means that hopefully we're going to save just a little bit of power, but more importantly, because apparently it's very quiet indeed, and it actually does have a still fan mode where it's got 0 RPM. When the power usage is very low, the fan on this will actually stop completely. So as we have a very big CPU cooler, one of the best air coolers that you can get, got to make sure that you buy all your components carefully. As you can see, the CPU cooler being so large, if this was a smaller case, it simply wouldn't fit. Now my next tip is, the first thing that really should go in is the motherboard, if you can access the back of the motherboard, because what we're going to have to do is, for the mounting bracket for that very big CPU cooler, we're going to have be able to have access to the back of the motherboard as well as the front. And so because this case has that rear access, and I can open a door, there's another door like this on the other side, I can actually put the motherboard in, and then when the motherboard is in, start to work with the cooler into it. So before you put your motherboard in, it's definitely worth putting the back plate in. The back plate is what, it just makes it look really nice for all of your cables to go into. And it looks like Gigabyte have done a really nice job with this one. I really like the style of it. And there's going to be a rather satisfying, just a nice little clunk when it manages to go in. Oh, that's not quite the clunk that we're looking for. There you go, pop 1, pop 2. There we go. Now when you're building with computers for the first time, you can always be a little bit worried about noises Really, this is just like Lego for adults. But it's very important that I put that in first before we actually get the motherboard in. Now what I recommend is that you should definitely be using anti-static static wristbands and whatnot. But generally, what we're going to find is that as long as we touch a steel part of the case that's grounded, we should be okay for picking it up. Now one thing that's interesting about this is that these like heat sinks here actually move. That quite worried me because I'd love to get a real good handle on them to be able to put this in. So here we go, let's do it. There's the Corsair mid pin. One of the most interesting things and scary things about this case is that Corsair actually have this pin in the center of the 760T. So that's actually quite nice now because that's in a very nice firm position for when we screw down the rest of the screws. So looking at the color of the PCB board, you can see that it's a little brown, but it's still black enough. Black enough. I remember when they started to do these black PCB boards, and they were considered to be all fancy because you can have it all black. But you do get that little tinge of brown, but that's normal. So, alright, so now what we're going to do is make sure that we screw in all of these screws into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because Corsair have got this main pin there already. We have to get it quite stable, and so this is a mounting plate that we're going to have to put on the back of the motherboard. So one of the great things is about the Corsair 760 that we've got here, you can actually see that we were able to take off the back door that is over here. So taking the back door clean off, and then what that allows us to do is get nice easy access to the back plate, make sure everything lines up. And in she goes. Great, that's going to be the back plate there. Just make sure that's not going to fall off. Nope, that should be stable there. So what I'm doing right now is I'm putting on the mounting bracket onto the motherboard, and one of the key things you can do here that's great with the ND15 is that you can choose which way you want to have it aligned. Now what I'm doing here is basically making sure that I have the alignment like that, so that eventually what will happen is, unless I'm mistaken, it's now going to go on like that. And the reason why I want to have it that way and not that way is because I want the fan to blow from there to there. What I want to do is get the airflow going in through the case, and this is our kind of, I guess, our extractor fan, so say if you want to call it that. I have to admit, I think you could have a better job getting airflow through this case, but this isn't really a high airflow case, I don't think. I feel like this is more of a comfort and the design of it kind of case. Basically what I'm trying to say is that if I was to have it that way, that I might be blowing air up into here or air down into there, depending on which way I wanted to have it. What I want to do is have the air blow across, draw the air over the memory, and then get the air out the back. That's what you've got to be thinking. So one of the really cool features about this Noctua heatsink fan, I really enjoyed this, I really like this. They've got clips. They've got clips on the side that we can see here. So look how easy it is, as he says, to be able to get your fan onto the heatsink. It's as simple as that. And then you can arrange it to whatever height you want to have. Okay, let's make sure we get this flush on. So there we go. Okay, that's on real tight now. That's not going to be rattling around at all. I think this is a fantastic design. If a fan fails, God forbid, these things have got apparently a very good lifespan on them, then you can easily just whip it off. And if you want to change your fan position, maybe you want to have one over here, maybe you want to have one over here, then it's super easy. Okay, so here we go. This is the brain of the computer. We're going to be putting in the new 6700K processor. This thing was not cheap. I don't know, when I was building computers maybe 5 or 10 years ago, I spent less money on I've spent less money on building the entire thing as I have on the CPU, and probably just the case here. Now you don't really want to touch your CPU very much if at all possible. Probably just get it by the side here. And make sure you've thought about this, about how it's going to slot in. It should slot in just like that. Okay. Yeah, that is correct. Now this is the scary part. What we're going to do is actually fold this back over. And there we go, our CPU is in place. Now what we need to do is to put the mounting brackets on. So now that we have the CPU in place, we're going to have to use some thermal compound to be able to put onto here just a pea-sized amount right in the center. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a nice flush conductive surface between the heatsink fan and actually the CPU, which you can see there. Now, luckily, Noctua got a rather high quality thermal compound that we're going to be able to use here. And we're literally just going to put a pea-sized amount as carefully as we can right into the center. Now there's many different ways that people say about doing this, but I've read around and we just want a nice pea-sized amount right in the center of the CPU. That should do. There we go. Great. You don't need to spread it around or anything, because that's what the pressure is going to do. Now, what I thoroughly recommend is that you make sure that you've got everything completely fastened, because once you've put this on, you're going to have to go through the kerfuffle of removing all the thermal compound if you want to do it again. So when you're doing this part, what I'd recommend is that you do it bit by bit. And what that's going to do is probably spread the thermal compound in a nice shape all over. Whenever you're tightening things, it's good to not do one the whole way, but just to do a few on each side. Okay, that one's tight. Hopefully this one should only require a few more screws before it's tight as well. There we go. So there we go, scary bit over. Woo! Now you can have a beer. Or not, don't drink it, it's not cool. I'm going to be installing our RAM. So we've got 32 gigabytes of 2133 megahertz RAM coming in there. Going to be putting all of these in the slots. So let's get started. Again, make sure you're grounded. I use a static wristband. Metallic surfaces are good for that as well. Don't be in a static environment. Okay, so as you can see, when you're doing this, the teeth are off center. The teeth aren't in the middle. They have to go a specific way. So what you want to do is look at your motherboard, see which is the smaller one. Here's smaller than there, and that means that the smaller side of ours is going to go into here, so it's going to be nice and easy for us. So they'll go in like that. What you can do is you can also think, has it got a logo? Which way will the logo go? The logo is going to be going this way. I believe you can have another quick look before you decide that it is time to invest. Make sure all of these little poppers are out. It's something that I should have done before I did this. I'll make sure all these little poppers are out because I'm going to be using all of the DIMM slots here. So they're going to go in like this, like so. And then you have to give them a little bit of a, and then you hear they clunk in there nicely. Perfect. And that is your RAM installed. Nice and easy. There we go. Get that lovely feel. Perfect. Okay, so one thing that's important when you're using a high performance air cooler like this is to make sure that your RAM is going to be compatible with it. Because as we can see here, whereas Noctua have definitely made steps to try and provide compatibility for all RAM by raising this part of the heatsink here. So if you've got tall RAM with a lot of these RAMs have got heatsinks that come quite high, that you will be able to do that. But what I'm going to be able to do is still fit in this rather meaty fan here, just above the RAM. I'm going to make sure that it's not quite touching so that it doesn't insulate it. And then we're going to simply put on another fan here to provide the ultimate cooling solution. go. There's no commitment, I can lower that if I want. I guess this is where we find, are we going to be able to close the door? And I guess if the door can close there, it should be able to close there as well. I think that is a gigantic heatsink fan. I think maybe in a way it detracts a little bit from the appeal of the look of the case when you put the second fan on there. But like air cooling wise, I just really want to get performance from this as well. I want it to look a little bit good. Not sure about this beige. Maybe I can understand why they've gone for that design. It's a nice look. It'd be better if it was even white, then it would match the case. Still, overall, I think it looks awesome. So I've been at it for a little while. I've managed to get the cable management in a pretty good state. I don't really like these coloured wires coming through here from the 760, but maybe I can get some kind of a sheath to go over them eventually, if I can be bothered. So yeah, I think it's all starting to look pretty tidy. I love the flexibility of these kind of like rubberized holes here that we're able to use to hide all of the horrific wiring that you're going to be able to see when I turn this around in a second. Here we go. Oh yeah. Oh, wait a minute, don't want to lose anything. So this is what we're hiding, guys, at the back. I'm going to tidy all of this up, but imagine if you were to just have this at the front of the case. We've got so much flexibility to hide all the wiring, which I really like. And so the end result is that we're going to have a very clean build on the front. Now, the reason why I'm showing you the back here as well is because we're about to install our solid state drive. I'm using a Crucial solid state drive. I bought this a while ago, actually. It's 256 gigabytes, so it should be sufficient. And I wanted to show you what Corsair have developed with the 760T case, at least with regards to the back, as to what you can do with your solid state. So it's as simple as, I'm just going to show you on this one roughly, and I'm going to decide which bay I want to go into. It's as simple as far as I'm aware, of just sliding in your SSDs like that. So it's as simple as that. We've got toolless SSD bays in here. Lovely. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 slots that we could use. So yeah, I'm probably going to put in a Blu-ray drive or a DVD rewriter or something in the optical bay here eventually. But we're actually getting close to being able to turn it on and to install a copy of Windows. So day 2, as you can see, it's starting to get a little bit tidier. I haven't finished all the cable management. I'm going to be doing a full talk about that in a minute. But I've ordered a 3 terabyte hard drive to go in conjunction with the solid state that you see at the back there. And just check out how easy it is for these hard drives to go into the 760T. There's lovely, easy, toolless pop in, just fold that bit over there, and then it's nice and secure. It's not going to vibrate around in there, hopefully. And then whack it, hopefully, back in. Come on. There you go, nice and easy. And that's it. That's how easy it is to install a hard drive. I've also bought a Blu-ray rewritable drive as well as a DVD rewriter, and also does CDs as well, if anyone actually gets that kind of media. And then hopefully we should just be able to slide our... There we go. We should hopefully just be able to slide this bad boy into place until it clicks. So guys, I've just been faffing around for the last few hours with this. This is a Seagate 3 terabyte hard drive, and I bought it new. And I like a lamb, I guess. I just put it in, expecting it to work, and then I look on it and I say, oh gosh, this was made in 2011. Why are they sending me a 4-year-old hard drive? How ridiculous. And I went around and had a look on it using some software, and I found out that it's got hundreds and hundreds of hours of use on it. So they've sent me a refurbished hard drive as a new product. How absolutely ridiculous is that? And I love my Seagate products. As you can see here, I've got a 2 terabyte Seagate hard drive, and I bought this a couple years ago. And as you can see here, the DOM, the date of manufacture, was actually 2013. So this was newly made just a couple months before I bought it. And I buy another one 2 years later, and it's 2 years older than the one that I bought. How absolutely ridiculous. But thank goodness Amazon's got my back. I'll be dropping that one off at the post office tomorrow. reordering. Hopefully, I'm going to give Seagate another go. And if I don't get new hard drives again from Amazon, then I'm probably going to buy from a different manufacturer. So round 2 I just got up, and that's because the mailman came at 7 AM. I ordered 2 new hard drives yesterday at like 10 o'clock, and they come at 7 AM. God, I love you, Amazon Prime. And so, yes, now let's take a look at what the date of manufacture is on these new 2 terabyte ones that I decided to get. And as we can see here, these bad boys were made in May. And if we just take a look at the shocking difference between the 2 new hard drives that I ordered. So let's see if you guys can see the difference. One looks like it's been dragged through computer hell and back. And one looks completely brand new. What a surprise. So my pro tip to you is if you do get hard drives, definitely firstly check the date of manufacture on them. And if they're not new, bloody return them. You don't want a refurbished drive. Take a look at this. GTX 980 Ti. Thank you so much for Gigabyte for sending this to me. I was testing this setup on stream a couple of times. We were able to get 60 FPS in pretty much everything that we wanted to play, even while streaming. This is a beast of a graphics card. It's completely overkill for my needs. Thank you so much to Gigabyte for sending me this test copy. And so, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, here is the finished article. After a couple of hours of cable management, which was very easy in this case, and I'll show you at the back just why, we have the glorious beast. What an absolute monster this is. I love the gigantic side window. I can see through it all my components, which I've picked very carefully. This mechanism is just wonderful. Just straight off and in, easy access. And then if I want, there's a hinge there, so I can just lift the door straight off. It was so easy to build with. And so what do we have inside? We've got a nice bay for your optics up there, very easy for them to come out. We've got I guess they call it a stealth front as well, so that looks really nice with our Blu-ray rewritable ROM that we have in there if I'm ever going to want to use that. I've gone for a 4 terabyte RAID 0, and I know a lot of you are going to say, oh, it's not stable. Yeah, I'm going to be backing it up using an external as well, just in case. But for the price, this is amazing bang for buck. We've got 4 terabytes, 2 Seagate 2 terabyte drives that you saw. I've put them in RAID 0, as I said. Fair enough, that's going to reduce the stability. Well, not the stability, but the reliability, I guess is the correct term. Because if one of these hard drives dies, that means that both of them are going to become useless. Well, I can still reformat the one that hasn't broken, but all of the data will be gone if one of them goes. So it's very important that you back them up with an external system. Unfortunately, these hard drives have actually become the loudest part of the system. So maybe I should have gone for solid state drives. But I do have one solid state drive, and just check out that. That is the rear mount for the solid state drives at the back. Right in there is our 256 megabyte crucial solid state drive, which I'm just going to be using for my Windows operating system and for small programs that I'll need to access quickly, and probably also that's big enough to leave my World of Tanks on as well. In the future, I have more than enough space to add in 3 additional solid states without cluttering up the system at all. I absolutely love the look of this case. And as you can see, I haven't done perfect cable management, but I think I've done a pretty good job. The airflow in this case will be fantastic, and I think we've got quite a nice look going on the inside. The only real noise that comes from this system is going to be the graphics card when it is under stress, but even then it's rather quiet indeed. And the case fans at the front, fair enough, they're louder than our heatsink fan, but still they're doing a pretty darn good job. You can barely see the 32 gigabytes of RAM that we have in this system. They are hidden underneath the heatsink fan. But thanks to this awesome Noctua, I think it's the NH15 cooler, it's doing a fantastic job. These fans are completely silent. I've clocked this thing already to 4.4 gigahertz, which I think is all that I'm going to need to. They don't let the CPU get over 55 degrees, and they're completely inaudible. This is by far the best heatsink system I've ever used for the CPU. And as you guys may know, on my previous system, which you can see here, I was using a Corsair H100. And I managed to squeeze the radiator, not sure if you can see, right down in there at the front of this Antec 900 case. This 650 watt hard drive is more than sufficient for our needs. We were running our graphics card and our CPU overclocked along with 2 hard drives, a solid state, and didn't have one blip in the power. Previously I was using a 520 watt Corsair hard drive, and I put a pretty hefty overclock on my 3570K, as well as using a GTX 970, which requires quite a lot of power as well, and having no problems with that. Don't believe the hype that you really need a very powerful power supply unit. And there are lots of websites that you can check where you can add your system specs and it will tell you exactly what kind of power supply power you might need. All in all, I think the system looks rather nice. I'm sure that I could make improvements if I really wanted, but I'm absolutely proud of the setup. What do I think of the World of Tanks branded motherboard? Well, I think it's sufficient for my needs, but once you put the graphics card in, it becomes World of Roll. And so really, apart from that heatsink, there's not too much to look at here. I do like the LED that goes up the side, the red LED. It does add some pizzazz to the case. But if you don't like this, you can turn it off. And if you feel really funky, you can also set it to beat rhythmically to music. And to get this kind of clean look with tidy cable management, if I do say so myself, we've had to, of course, hide all the wires out the back. And this Corsair 760T does also have a rear panel that you can just remove out like that. And here you guys should be able to see some of the cable management that we have used to be able to get a nice airflow to the components that really need it. And also make the front of the case look fabulous for that lovely window. And just look how clear that window is. It really is a very nice piece of kit. I'm very impressed by this Corsair case. I wouldn't change it.
So you've seen the complete installation and you've seen how good it all looks, but does that really even matter? Let's see how this beast performs. So let's start by looking at something that's very important to me in video production, and that is the time that it takes to render a video. If I'm pushed for time and I want to get you guys that latest bit of tank action, I really need a computer that's going to be able to get it done quickly. And so to show this, I installed Sony Vegas on my old computer and new computer, and then I rendered the exact same video, this physics changes video. It's not the longest, it's only 6 minutes and 55 seconds long at 45 frames a second, but let's see how long it took on my old computer. And that was 24 minutes and 34 seconds. And it should be noted that my old computer uses a 3570K running at 4.2 gigahertz. Now let's see if there are any improvements using the new computer, and boy, there were. The same video took 11 minutes and 40 seconds to render. That's over twice as fast, saving me 12 minutes and 54 seconds when rendering the video. And I attribute that to going from 4.2 to 4.4, going from the Ivy Bridge chip to the new Skylake chip, as well as also going from an i5 to an i7 with the hyperthreading, and also the RAM increase as well. Now obviously this was certainly one of my shorter videos, and when I'm doing a tank review, which can be 4 times as long, well, you guys do the maths. And a 30-minute long tank review would have been taking me about 2 hours to render on my old computer, which is cut down to an hour on my new computer. And so if a disaster happens, I can still get you that content, or if I need to make a change, then I still got the time to do it. Next, you guys might be interested in the gaming performance of my computer, and using 3D Mark 11 is a great way to check that. This is my old score using the GTX 970, as well as that 3570K running at 4.2 gigahertz, and the computer scored 4,809. The new computer using the Gigabyte Gaming One GTX 980 Ti, along with the 6700K CPU, was able to achieve 8,370. Increasing the 3D Mark 11 score of the computer by 3,561, an increase of nearly 75%. Now what about the hard drive performance of going from a non-RAID setup to a RAID setup? Well, here is my old 2 terabyte Seagate, and we can see that across the hard drive the read speeds vary between about 200 to about 100, with an average of 162 megabytes a second. Now let's take a look to see how it is performing in RAID 0. And we are getting pretty much linear performance here. Now the minimum is 200 and the maximum is over 400, with an average of 327 megabytes a second. The performance increase is dramatic. And just to allow you guys to compare, here is the read performance of the solid state drive in my old computer. As we can see, the maximum is 387, with an average of 357. which is only better average performance than the RAID 0 version of our solid-state drives. And it goes without saying that having 4 terabytes available to you is a lot better than having 256 gigabytes available to you. But I hasten to add that if you do set up your computer with RAID 0, you have to have a backup system, because the danger of losing this data is real, or it's twice as bad as it would be before, of having no backup at all. So next, you guys might be interested in how I have overclocked my computer with the new 6700K Skylake processor. Well, I'm running a max voltage of 1.28 to achieve a 4.4 overclock. And using the Noctua NH-D15, it keeps the CPU at below 55 degrees. Even after 5 hours of streaming pretty much using the CPU at 100%, it didn't go above that. And the fan noise is inaudible, just no noise whatsoever. So I couldn't be happier with the performance of the Gigabyte Z170X Gaming 3 Edition as an overclocker. Maybe if I want to push beyond 4.4, maybe the motherboard will start to struggle, but that is beyond what I need, at least for now. And so here is my final price list. If I purchased all of this and I wasn't me, it would have cost me £1,660, which is an absolutely insane amount of money to spend on anything. Luckily, Gigabyte were able to help me out. Thank you so much, Gigabyte, for providing the graphics card and the motherboard, meaning that my total was below £1,000 for pretty much a state-of-the-art computer that only people like me who are streaming and processing videos while gaming at max graphics in 1080p resolution really need.
And so there you have it. For me, I'm not disappointed by a single thing that I purchased for this build. And the performance boost that it's going to give to my stream and my YouTube, as I've already shown in this video, and the fact that my rendering times have nearly been cut down by a half, really gives me everything that I need. But I hasten to add that this computer is probably not suitable for 99.9% of you. I need this power because this is also my occupation. And this system is completely overkill for gaming at 1080p. If you wanted to take the step up to 1440p or even higher to 4K, then perhaps you might need this kind of power. But if you're gaming at 1080p like the vast majority of people are, then you really don't need to get anything this powerful. And so hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider giving it a like down below. It really helps the channel out. And let me know in the comments, have I made any mistakes? Do you like what I've done? Would you do anything differently, or do you have any suggestions for me? And I'd like to just give a massive thank you to all of you, because you guys have made all of this possible. So thank you so much. I really, really, really appreciate it. And hopefully you guys keep on enjoying my content at this kind of enhanced version, thanks to this lovely piece of kit that I've got now. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.